Welcome to the session, Necessity and Mother of All Inventions and Pop-Ups. My name is Bergsma, and I'm the head of EIT Urban Mobility. So today's session, actually the title already says it, is about the crisis which had a deep social and economic impacts. Public and private sector developed fast responses in the field of. Some of the most interesting responses had to be cross-sectoral, addressing the needs in the area of mobility and other domains. And in this session, we will present some short collection of super interesting cases and lessons we can bring to. So actually, during this pandemic, thought to be impossible is actually possible. So the COVID-19 crisis, cities accelerated the implementation of their sustainable urban. And amidst the tragedy, COVID-19 really triggered some and just that might otherwise not have happened in years. So and for the year 2023 or 2030, these now had to be accelerated and in a much more short-term plan. So times have shifted. And the biggest challenge really in this is to make these positive changes permanent. We have to counteract bouncing back to pre-COVID conditions and above all, the use of private cars. The Corona crisis has opened up our minds and showed us how cities actually could look like. So it has changed how much we travel, where travel. And it has created a huge opportunity which can accelerate transformation to more sustainable. But change will really not happen by itself. People have changed their behaviors temporarily, and not because they thought that was the best for climate change, because it was the best choice for themselves. Experiment, it really requires a change in the environment to make it appealing to people's sense of urgency. But this is not make it attractive, offer attractive options. So that's not only the best thing for climate, but also for people's personal needs, health, and personal preferences as well. So for example, say having lane, parking, bike sharing systems all over the city, those are things that really help. This pandemic, we have started to walk much more and use our bicycles much more. And it became apparent more space is needed for cyclists, for pedestrians, safe movement. And many cities really responded to that. So, for example, Paris planned to create 650 kilometers of cycleways and created 50 kilometers. Brussels announced like 30-kilometer speed limit, and in the city center, even 20-kilometer-per-hour limit. And also expanded the bike network to give much more priority to cyclists and pedestrians. And this has happened in the world. It's really another revolution. It's the space revolution. So we've been talking about the livable urban spaces, and now it's actually happening. So, and it's not only about more spaces for bikes, but more spaces for people. And many cities all over Europe have so the restaurants were giving much more space, temporary space for the terraces to increase outdoor capacity. And these were previously parking spots. So these changes were done fast with an experimental mindset, not waiting to have the perfect plan. Really, it was good enough to respond to, and that can be improved while experiencing going forward. And this really is innovation at its best and strongly driven by cities as frontrunners. So what we've learned from actually to change rapidly if there's political will and societal basis for such measures. So this really is a really important period of opportunity to think out of the box, to learn fast, to accelerate, and to change and throw all old paradigms overboard. What is mobility? Mobility is actually about building a community value, but also about transport systems. It's about how to traveling, but also about how to move faster and cleaner. And for at EIT Urban Mobility. EIT Urban Mobility was created by the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, the EIT team. And now, at this moment, we are 230 partners from 17 countries, bringing together industries, research centers, and cities to find solutions to urban mobility challenges and implement fast results and scale these. And to do this, how we innovate. So we have to faster from and put the problem, make sure that we put our efforts into solutions, solve and make follow up. And for this, we bring all these stakeholders to in activities and business creation. We bring them together to understand the real needs of cities, identify the challenges that cities are facing, and these will set the innovation calls. So city challengers, we give them a platform to jointly develop solutions addressing those needs, and we give them funds to implement and scale the best of those new mobility solutions. Also, COVID for us as EIT Urban Mobility was a very challenging period. So it hit us when we were just 3 months into our first operational year. So besides putting pretty much all our beliefs to the test around how we live and work and move around, it was also as a community. We promised to accelerate from our market. And now here comes really the ultimate test. An EU-funded project is not normally like a halfway of 3 more years from partners bringing together their ideas to starting a project and delivering. But obviously, to respond to the pandemic, these long cycles would not work. So we had to bring it down to 3 months from freeing up additional funds in May 2020 and putting out the call to starting projects in July, August, with demonstrations at the end of 2020. And as part of the EU to tackle the COVID-19 crisis, the EIT launched the EIT Crisis Response Initiative. And launched an exceptional COVID call, response call, dedicated to really addressing mobility challenges posed by COVID-19. So we allocated nearly 5 million euros. We received nearly 100 applications, and from this, innovation from call to demo in only 6 months. I've supported 23 startups, and most of the COVID response projects were focused on shared mobility, helping vulnerable people to access mobility services despite the pandemic, and hygiene measures to maintain confidence in public transport. So during minutes, we will get 5 inspiring presentations about projects that have dealt with this need for change. So we will have 3 projects that resulted from crisis response call that EIT Urban Mobility launched, and another 2 inspiring cases from the city of Rome and the region Île-de-France. And each presentation will be of 10 minutes, followed up by 5 minutes Q&A. And we invite you to put your questions in the Q&A chat box, so we will try to answer some of them during these Q&A sessions. But now I really would like to give the speaker Our first speaker is Inés Aquilué, manager at a future mobility research hub and a teacher at the UP and Department of Urban and Regional Planning. She's an architect, urban planner, and a PhD holding a PhD. Inés has participated in led many research and innovation projects, the interaction of citizens and space of this transition. And Inés will present one of these EIT-funded projects called Furnace. And so, Inés, I would like to I invite you to start. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you very much, Bernadette, for your for your invitation to this session. I am going to share my screen. I think that you can see it well, no? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this very interesting conference. It is a pleasure. I am sorry because I started for the here. It's very exciting to be here today, and thank you very much to the EIT Urban Mobility to invite me to present the Furnish project. Furnish project was a project that we carried out in 2020 under the hardest times of pandemic, and it was a project that aimed to co-create new public spaces under this COVID-19 situation. Well, I would like to start with this image. This is an image of one of our European streets. As you may see, almost a big part, an important part of the street is dedicated to cars and to road, no? While only a small part of the road is dedicated to pedestrians and to other activities. As you may know, the local municipalities, the European local municipalities are rethinking these spaces and trying to bring more space for pedestrians and for other activities that are not related with the use of private vehicles. During the pandemic, this expansion of public space was accelerated due to the need of more space for maintaining this physical distance that we need to have safety between us. This is the same street, but one day that was open for pedestrians and to walk around it. The project Furnish aims to furnish this new expanded public space to reinforce and foster new activities in this new expanded public space. In this case, Furnish used the COVID-19 as an opportunity to bring new activities to this expanded public space. For doing that, a consortium in which participated CARNET, and also we were the leaders, UPC, Elisaba, IAC, Comune de Milano, and AMAT, was created to carry out the project. The main objective of Furnish was to generate a series of mobile urban elements designed to be temporarily installed in public space, newly expanded to fight against COVID-19 while promoting social cohesion. Indeed, this last objective, this promotion of social cohesion, was one of the bases. We aim to promote the social cohesion in these new public spaces while ensuring the COVID-19 safety. Then we adapt temporary public spaces to meet the new challenges and opportunities that arise from the COVID-19 crisis and to merge these challenges of gaining public space through tactical urbanism with local digital manufacturing. Indeed, we decided to use those local digital manufacturing because these prototypes should be scalable because COVID-19 was happening all around the world, and those prototypes should be scalable in whatever part of the world. The principles of Furnish was to produce these mobile urban elements using co-creation design. Then designs and prototypes were produced in collaborative workshops in which all the Furnish teams participated. The testing and the co-creation process was based in the urban living lab methodology. And as I told before, prototypes were digitally manufactured in order to scale them up. Well, the urban living lab methodology that we use has a goal in innovation, deployed many activities in relation with co-creation under a context of pandemic, as it was the core of the project, and the participants were very diverse. We had researchers, we had designers, we had makers, we had the end users, and we had also the local municipalities who supported the project. To carry out the project, we construct a model. It was called the 4-phase model. Here you can see the scheme we follow up. There were 4 phases. First phase was phase 1, problem and ideation. Second phase was development. Third phase was implementation and assessment. And fourth phase was the final proposal. In the whole process, 7 teams participated from 5 different cities. Well, they were from Guimarães in Portugal, from Espoo in Finland, from Budapest in Hungary, from Milan in Italy, and from Barcelona in Spain. Here we have a map in which you can see a bit the deployment of these prototypes, the cities in which they were placed, and also you can see how different, how diverse they were. This is because the ideation phase was very diverse, had different end users, and then the prototypes were also different in shape. The agents involved were as research community, mainly researchers, designers, and makers, the community itself, and users and neighbors, the administration, mainly municipalities who supported the project and also gave permission to use their public space to place our prototypes. And from the industrial side, we had the Fab Labs and local manufacturing workspaces in which all these prototypes could be developed locally. Here, a bit of statistics of the people that participated in the project. We had more than 70 makers and designers participating. We had more than 300 people surveyed using the prototypes, and we had more than 5,000 people using and testing those prototypes. To give a bit of an overview of the methodology we use, I am going to explain a bit these 4 phases I told we follow for deploying the whole project. The first phase was phase 1, problem and ideation. It was a first approach that took place before the co-creation workshops. The design teams itself had some discussions with the communities. They think what their needs were. They start to making their first designs, and they bring the first ideas after this internal discussion with the community. Here's some of the sketches. Then the second phase was the phase of the development. This took place in co-creation online workshops. All design teams participated and were sharing between each other their designs and were discussing a bit of the solutions and trying to find final design proposals together. These are some sketches from Elizabeth. These are also sketches from Elizabeth. These are designs from IAC. And in this same phase, we also carry out the fabrication of the prototype. This fabrication was also carried out during the co-creation workshops. Each team was fabricating their prototype, but all problems or solution findings were discussed together in the co-creation workshops that took place during this phase. Here are some examples of the prototype of a spool. Here from Gimerange. And then came the third phase, which indeed was the core phase of the whole project. It was the implementation, testing, and assessment phase. Here you can see a bit the images of the implementation of those prototypes being used by end users. In this phase, also the testing and assessment took place. And for the testing, we had like 3 different impact analyses. The first one was feasibility, that would like to show the scalability of each prototype, because those prototypes should be reproducible wherever in the world. The second impact analysis was the social one, in which some surveys and observational forms were carried out to know the social acceptability of the projects. And finally, the third one was the spatial impact, in which we measure the impact that each prototype could have in the public space. Well, finally, we had our fourth phase, was the final proposal. Here you can see the 7 prototypes that we ideate, design, fabricate, and test in all their locations. And what we did was to build an open source repository in which we gathered all the information generated by those 7 prototypes. And we mainly create two files for each prototype. The first one was a PDF with a booklet, a design booklet, in which you can see how you can see the design of the prototype, you can see what it's for, you can see how to assemble it, and you can indeed understand what is its purpose. And the second one, it's a folder with all the digital files for reproducing it wherever in the world. This is our open repository. It's available, and you can consult it here in this link. Well, and as I started here, we can see the change, no? This shift from our common streets, here the open streets for pedestrians, for walking, and here our change from these open streets, this expanded new public space, to the new furnished space with activities and new social activities happening. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you to the EIT Urban Mobility for inviting me to this session, and also for funding this very interesting project. Please visit our website. And if you have any questions.
I think Inés, for the inspiring case that you just in just 6 months you are able to do a lot and really have so of urban living labs. So how can it be key cities?
Well, this is a very important question now in our days. As you know, as I said at the beginning, before the COVID-19 pandemic, there were many municipalities were thinking in how they should change their streets to have a more livable spaces, and how you can gain them. And I think that urban living labs could be it's complicated, because you need to have a lot of agents working there, but you ensure the acceptability of your proposals, because the people who are going to use and live there and make their activities there are involved in the whole process. In our case, we use it by co-creation workshops, first in the ideation phase, also testing them directly. And as I said at the beginning, these were mainly prototypes. Then you can have an iterative process of design. You can test, them took the proposal of the urban living labs, applied them, and you can do that many times as you need. No, in this case, it was a very short project. We had not much time for doing that, but you can indeed go further with this process as the end. Well, there are no optimal solutions, but you can indeed find something that it's very suitable for your community.
Thank you. I also see that we have a question. So participation and co-creation is very rarely architecture and design courses. So designers are actually rarely having any training and any will to do. How did this process change the designers?
Well, it's true that it was a very challenging project because there were seven different teams, and they were working in 5 different cities. Then we tried to work all together, but each team has a bit their own dynamics. There were some teams that had more relation with the communities, and others were not so related. But it depends also in the community itself. If the designers are very linked to the community, for example, in the case of Fab Labs, there are some Fab Labs that are quite linked to their communities. This is easier. Or for example, in the case of schools, this is also quite easy because there's a very close community, and then designers can share their activities with them, and then it's easy to work together. Then if the communities are well organized and the designers are more open as other times, it's easy to work. But you need both things, no? Designers that are intended to work with people, accepting the testing, accepting the assessment, accepting also the ideation part of the community, and also you need these communities that are well organized.
Yeah, see again. Actually, stakeholder actually what creates really impact, how we can achieve. Yes, so thank you very much. Interesting case. And now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker. Our next speaker, Irazustabarrena, manager and transport division of TECNALIA. Welcome, Anne. So Anne has a master and is Emese in chemistry. Currently, she is the expert investments at TECNALIA for value and urban mobility. Also, senior proposal manager at European funded roles. Will present another project funded by EIT Urban Mobility about inclusive e-bike. So Anna, I give you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, EIT Urban Mobility, for inviting me to give this presentation. Thank you also to the organizers of Urbanism Next Europe 2021 event. Okay, as Bernadette mentioned, I will make a presentation about a project funded into the COVID call by EIT Urban Mobility. It's called Inclusive Bike, and it's about improving the frail people personal mobility, providing them with a new system, an e-bike, tandem cycling experience. And this was for assuring social distancing and creating new jobs. Yes. So, okay. First, I will make a we'll introduce the topic, and the topic is about how pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, was far more than a health crisis. It has affected the society and the economy at the core. And Italy and Spain are 2 EU countries that has been affected more by the pandemic. So yes, it will most increase the poverty, inequalities, and so now is more than ever urgent to make achievements in the goals of the sustainable development. So TECNALIA and together with other partners, we saw the possibility to present this project with the idea to develop, with the aim to develop a new concept of rickshaw, e-bike, capable to improve and to promote the safety and comfort, and extend the inclusiveness to frail and vulnerable people that has seen their mobility reduced due to COVID situation. So it was a project run in 6 months, started in July last year and ended in December. And we appreciate very much the involvement of 2 cities, Bilbao and Bergamo, where we could test and validate our prototype. The strategic goal of the project, it is a carbon fiber chassis composition. So from the technical point of view, the cargo bike, the rickshaw was had good hydraulic ABS braking systems, was helped with ADAS embedded functionalities. A new thing was as well a pump wheelchair elevator, allowing to concentrate in one single personal light inclusive bike with also high weight capacity up to 300 kilograms, and very relevant, the optimized braking and cyclability system. So all these together with accessibility and zero emission. Inclusive bike had envisioned a new electric vehicle for personal light transport, capable to give answer to the demands. It was as well designed for having less energy consumption. It could get an affordable micromobility. So the idea was breaking barriers for people with mobility issues in urban areas. So as I said, the consortium had all the necessary design and capabilities, engineering, manufacturing experience, and so on, and we could test it into cities. You can see in the slide the prototype, and it was the challenge. So we had mainly 2 and 3. It was focused in 3 main specific targets: to reduce the air pollution due to mobility, to reduce the modal share of private cars. The idea was to eliminate private cars and use this rickshaw, this e-bike prototype and system, and innovate mobility solutions implemented by a city. So this is the prototype you can see in the slides, and in 6 months it was a very successful project. We could really build up, develop, and test a system. So I have talked about the leader of the project, TECNALIA, but we had a very high capability consortium. We have Bosch on board, we had Axiro, One Less Van, we have the Agencia para Energía y Sviluppo Sostenible, and the 2 cities I have mentioned, Bilbao and Bergamo. Well, this is the picture when with the final prototype. This is the cargo bike. As I have mentioned, a new concept of rickshaw capable to promote safety, comfort, and the idea was to extend the inclusiveness to frail and vulnerable people. From the technical perspective, was a light system with a carbon fiber chassis. It was a safe system with hydraulic ABS braking system. It was also good for the assistance to the driver with an ADAS embedded functionalities, and it was also very accessible for using it, for introducing it, and all the delivery components there with a pump wheelchair elevator. You have there the website details, and you can get into the website and see more details about the project. At the end, we wanted to reduce the air pollution due to mobility, to reduce the modal share of private cars, and have innovative mobility solutions in urban areas. Well, some highlights of the project, and why this project, why we launched this project. The context was the disability and mobility, how the mobility as a service revolution forgot this segment of the population. From the point of view of the bike and the disability, why this bike is thought just for leisure and for this type of people. And we also based our idea on the experience abroad. So a rickshaw, for example, is in India and in other countries is a very well-used system. And in more recently, it has been introduced in EU. So we have a competitor outline. And we have pilot cities, so we had all the ingredients to launch this project and to have at the end a validation and a prototype, which the idea is to further develop and further introduce in the market. One of the first things we did in the first work package was to design a questionnaire for customer needs. And it was other stakeholders in the slide. And we had another prototype, which was to people. So this, from the business model point of view, was more difficult to really bring it to the market. But we have the prototype, and we have tested it, and it's a safe solution, and it's a very interesting solution for vulnerable people. Another highlight is the advanced functionality, the ADAS system. So this ADAS system was composed by two modules. On the one hand, a driver monitoring system, which was measuring the driver's ability to provide comfort and safe driving practices. And we have another safety module, which was provided. So it was like a based on a set of low-cost sensors. So we had this demo in the two cities, and we had a showroom of the prototype for the end users, and it was a successful experience. So now next steps are to improve this prototype. For this, which are the lessons learned and future applications, we have listened to the delivery service companies. I'm here talking about the cargo bike prototype. To improve the performance of the cargo bike, brakes are very relevant, and mainly when the driver is not seated on the cargo bike, on the e-bike. So that brakes can act by a self-control, and then it helps, and it's a big improvement for this delivery service. And in terms of the control, it is also we need to improve it from the control perspective, because The user experience told us that it's difficult, the control is not fully working, and sometimes it's difficult really to run the bike. So we in the next step, in the next project we are now thinking about, we will improve this control. We will start from zero, and we will develop a real new control for this cargo bike, which is very relevant for this delivery service. Then another lesson learned is that is really essential, the collaboration and involvement of cities. See? Yes? Yes, hello?
We have to yes, we have to bring it.
Yes.
So
yes.
And with your last slides, please.
Yes, this is my last slide. So we need to design more livable urban areas. And okay, thank you very much. And if you have questions, these are here. You can find my details, and that's all from my side. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks, and it's I mean, I've some videos. E-bike project, so interesting. So also, well, we have some questions. So, what do you think that the solution you provided for this project impact and make a big change for vulnerable people? Do you have insights in that?
Yes. Okay. I think this can be a big solution for vulnerable people. We have had some feedback from people which really is in this situation, and they say, well, they would like to have these services, this type of solutions for moving in the cities. If not, they have to step in a public transport. Sometimes it's difficult. With pandemic situation, is even more difficult. So we really are trying to organize and trying to find the business solution, because sometimes business for these specific segments and small segments of the population are not working from the business perspective. So what we are really having conversations with the associations of vulnerable people. We are having conversations with the cities, and we really think that this type of solutions must be more coming from the public administration. So we're working on it. We really think that business maybe can work, but must be helped by the public administration with some public funding or some help in this sense.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So we'll call administrations to put these kinds of solutions forward. Thank you, Anna. I would now like to Francesco, our next speaker. So Francesco Iacorossi is our next speaker. Francesco is a rugby player, and he's been working as a project manager at the mobilità since 2009 with EU-funded projects, and mainly in the field of sustainable through the promotion of cycling and walking, not just in urban areas. Francesco, give you the floor to present the wolf on two wheels. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to express my apology as my camera doesn't work. So I'm not sure if technology should be allowed, it should be included in this morning's session about the moderable inventions, but no big deal. Actually, the presentation is working, so I'm really happy to be here. So thanks for inviting me. Very happy to be sharing the floor with all these female colleagues, which doesn't happen very often, so spot on the gender balance. Well, about the getting the wolf onto wheels, I'm going to show you a few things, a few developments which have taken place in my city, and were actually accelerated by the whole COVID pandemic. A few insights about my city and its motorization rate. So 620 cars per 1,000 inhabitants, plus 500 motorbikes. Social cost concerning road safety crashes is 1.2 billion euros. So a lot of money and a lot of casualties, unfortunately. We suffer one fatality every 3 days and 46 injured every day. So bear in mind with these numbers. So yes, we can get back to normal because normal was the problem. Every city has its own issue, and based on my personal experience, children, elderly, and users with disabilities are model canaries of our cities. So if you don't see them around, you must worry. And so ideally, this Urbanist Next Europe should be target such figures in our cities, which were unfortunately relegated to the margins of our urban space. I'm going to show you immediately one of the latest interventions we had in the city center. That's a bike lane, a 5 kilometers bike lane length, which goes from the north of the city until the very center, nearby the Vatican State. And you can see with your own eyes the difference between before and after. But what if the silent majority speaks out finally? That's a statement made by a concerned father and local urban cyclist when he answered a few objections and made by local residents about the space reduction because of the bike lane. Well, the difference of having a bike lane on our streets can be explained by my 14-year-old son, who is not able to cycle back home from school for the very first time. So if we all fancy talking about the future of our children, I can introduce it to my son. And that says it all. So when the silent majority started to speak out, a big click has turned into the people's mentality, which is really important. As a cultural change needs to happen if you want to achieve what we want. That's a couple of more pictures about the Gregorio VII interventions. As you see, a bike lane. Surely perfectible, but so far it has proved to be reliable. No accidents were recorded, so far so good. Another couple of pictures, as you can see in the Vatican City on the left. So, what about the allocation of road space, a fair allocation of road space? Well, to me, it restores people's dignity as well. As you can see, bike lanes are maybe designed for cyclists, but not only cyclists can go and cycle on it. As you can see, disabled people with some difficulties. So, another example I want to show you is the Tuscolana bike lane, which is, to me, it's a fair road space allocation example. As you can see, the yellow stick is a bus stop. And as you can see, the people are surrounded by cars, are gated by car, the prisoners. Nowadays, that's the way it looks now. So the big difference can be spotted very, very easily. And these measures was actually included as a best practice example by the NACTO in the transit stop and access session of the Streets and Pandemic Response and Recovery Guide. So a very good and it gave us a lot of confidence to be rewarded in such way. We've been working on modal conflict avoidance as well, as we don't want pedestrians and cyclists to be in conflict at all. That's still in the Tuscolana bike lane. That's another way we put a modal conflict avoidance on the Cicabile Via Taranto, which is in the center of the city. And well, surely the role of active mobility can be the real vaccine of this era. So there was an old Irish song which says, "Some men fight for silver, some men fight for gold, but cyclists and pedestrians are fighting for the land that the motorists stole." One thing I would like to address is that through the PASTA project, which I was lucky enough to be in, was the biggest research in European history. We managed to gather over 12,000 EU citizens through 7 European cities. And we studied the effect of shifting from a motorized vehicle to bicycle, walking, and public transport user. One of the latest study we have produced, which was led by the Oxford University and Professor Christian Brandt, has proved that as highlighted, cyclists had 84% lower CO2 emissions from all daily travel than non-cyclists. So also literature can give us a huge help in spread the word in what we want to, what we study, what we've been studying. Then we come to the transitory plan. Ideally, a cycling transformation in Rome. Rome is currently involved in this European project called Handshake, and is one of the 10 future cycling capitals, along with other EU capitals such as Dublin, Bordeaux. We have Greater Manchester. We have Turin for Rome. Handshake is 100% partnership and collaboration. This was a picture was taken at the Velocity conference when we first in Dublin 19, when we first introduced our project, and at the plenary, as you can see, Chris Boardman, me, Brendan O'Brien from Dublin City Council, Vice Mayor of Copenhagen, and so we bring together 13 EU cities. And we want to share and inspire cycling excellence. We're flanked by many partners, such as Innova, which is also the coordinator, Aquilué, Mobile 21, the CISO, Urban Cycling, and Velo Mondial. So we're in very good company. Well, getting back to our transitory plan, we have a budget of 3.2 million euros for a total length of 150 kilometers. So far, 20 kilometers have been done. But I would like to show you the vision behind it, because COVID surely accelerated the whole process, but these projects were also already in our heads. So in this case, we did try to identify road access and connect them with the current cycling network. We wanted to intercept the post-lockdown growing cycling flows. We needed to focus on systematic journeys, and we needed to be agile, quick, and smart. The plan took also inspiration from the PUMS Roma, which is a sustainable urban mobility plan you mentioned before at the very beginning of our session, and as well as the Handshake project. Bike to work were to be prioritized through a fair balance between operating speed and budget availability. And we're also working on Isola Ambientale, which can be easily translated as the Barcelona superblock. And as I said before, we don't have to arise any conflict between pedestrians and cyclists. So we had to work hand in hand with pedestrian project. Undoubtedly perfectible, as I said before, transitory bike lane proved to be safe and reliable. And most importantly, they will remain in place. We decided not to use pop-up or temporarily, because transitory means that it takes also a certain amount of time for people to digest the measure. And so all the interventions we're working on, they will stay in place even after the pandemic. So that's very important for us. We're also working with schools. We have launched Strade Scolastiche, school streets. 17 schools were involved. And as you can see, one of this pic was taken maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago on a Friday school to streets event, and when school bus meets school streets. Another measures we've been deploying is the parking for bikes, and this measure was also thought within the EU PASTA project, the course of EU PASTA project. So more than 2,000 bike tracks have been deployed in the city, nearby schools, nearby metro station, libraries. This is one of the latest interventions we've been working on, Taranto La Spezia, bidirectional bike lane. It works really, really well, and it has reduced the space for cars within the streets, and which also contribute to a lower speed for cars. That's another view, perspective of the same interventions. More interventions. So this is in the city center of the city, and also the before and after, which clearly shows that yes, some dignity have been restored as well. Another Tuscolana before and after image. Bernstein as well is it's a 6 kilometers bike path in the outskirts of the city. Yes, we managed to put a bike box in Rome as well, and more bike boxes are popping up in our planning. As you can see, and it worked just fine. Shark teeth road markers have been implemented, the unsung heroes of Dutch experience. Another more shark teeth. And then it comes to the grub. Today, the 60th edition of Thinking Cities have been released, and I made a piece about the grub project, and which is pretty solid project, 45-kilometer long path. It improves connectivity between neighborhoods, and it would also provide a dedicated and safe space for active travel for everyone. It's a very light infrastructure, and so we will have a very small environmental impact in our city. And also the GRAP and the Hélène experience will be presented at the Velocity 2021, as I was lucky enough to be selected as a speaker in Lisbon in September. So far, 65 kilometers have been done. And sure, Rome is the world's biggest open-air museum, so we need to get out of our cars and try to ride a bicycle or walk in this case. So we need to wise up and enjoy the sweet smell of freedom. Pedala per Roma. That's the hashtag we want to boost. So one last thing: spending on bike lanes is a no-regret investment. So only time will tell, but I'm sure that we managed to put a solid base to ease at least the future process towards active mobility measures. Thank you very much, and keep the faith.
Well, impressive, Francesco, knowing how like, and I'm seeing suddenly all those bicycle lanes and people on bikes. That's really impressive. So also good to hear you're not about a transition. So
yep.
Moving on forward. So that's really what we aim for, right? So I would like to also ask you a question. So I mean, these transitions are very hard to achieve. So can you tell me what you think? Like, does political will towards active mobility finally pay off?
Well, yes, we have very good examples of politicians who fought for active mobility measures and were re-elected. Hidalgo in Paris in the first place, she was re-elected. And also we have an Italian example of an expat, Giuseppe Grezzi, is the mobility deputy mayor of Valencia, and he fought really hard to transform the city, and he was re-elected. So politicians, they need to focus on the common goods of our cities, and not too much about re-election thing, because if they work well, people will it pays off.
That's great to hear. So we just need to make IT part of this as well, and politicians, of course, being online. Great changes, Francesco. Thank you very much. I would now like to go to our next speaker.
Thank you.
So I would like to invite Szadeczky. Emese is a Budapest University of Technology and Economics associate professor, and in Hungary she works in the faculty of electrical engineering and informatics, and her research interests include autonomous systems and artificial intelligence. Interesting. So Emese is also presenting one of the by EIT Urban Mobility in the session. It's called COFCAP, Coordinating Volunteers to Support COVID-19 Affected Persons. So thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Dear Bernadette, thank you for the invitation and also for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present our COVID project, which is called COVCAP. As Bernadette already said, the long name of our project is Coordinating Volunteers Supporting COVID-19 Affected Persons, or shortly we call it for COVCAP. The project was partially financed by the EIT Urban Mobility in the frame of the COVID-19 crisis response call in the second half of the last year in 2020. 4 partners have formed this consortium. There are 3 Hungarian and the German partner. My university, the Budapest University of Technology and Economy, has the lead role. The city of Budapest cooperates also, and the Urban Institute from 2 different countries, from Germany and from Hungary, participate also. The German part is the German Urban Software Institute and the Urban Institute Hungary. They developed a system which is called Mobilità, Mobilität für alle, which means mobility to everyone. It is operating in Saarbrücken in Germany. This system helps disabled, handicapped people to use the public transport by providing them guidance. Our application, the COVCAP, is based on this Mobilità project, but it is extended according to the needs regarding the pandemic. As first step, we collected some experiments from the first wave of the COVID pandemic. We asked social services, charities, and municipalities about their work and coordination of volunteers. We wanted to know usually who asked for help, what kind of task had to be supported, how many volunteers they had, and how they coordinated everything, the needs and the offers. We have seen that due to the crisis, the number of people in need increased extremely. Fortunately, lots of people wanted to have them, and the coordination became a huge challenge. Usually all the tables and sheets were used to make the matchmaking, to find a volunteer to a request coming from a person in need. So we decided to develop an IT solution based on Mobilità, which can help both the works of the coordinators and the volunteers, and of course, which can support the vulnerable people as well. We focus separately on these 3 types of users and their needs. The main goal was to help such people who are restricted in mobility. Old and chronically ill people do not want to leave their home to avoid getting infected. Some people are not allowed to move out because they are in quarantine. They need help in such daily tasks such as shopping or buying medicine or dog walking. And there are also such people who have to go somewhere, perhaps to visit a doctor, and they need guidance for such trip because they are old or because they are handicapped. Volunteers can support these people. They connect usually municipalities, social services, or charities to tell them that they want to help someone. We focus on free will helpers, but our system can be used by professional social workers as well. The coordinators are usually employees of social services or charities. Their task is to collect the help request, to manage the help offers, and to find an adequate volunteer for each problem. We call this process as matchmaking. One of our main goals was to facilitate this matchmaking process to support the work of coordinators. This picture shows how the COVCAP system works. If a vulnerable person needs some help, he or she has to call the operator and tell them where and what kind of help and when is it required. The operator reaches the system through a web browser and gives the required data. The system supports the matchmaking. I will show the details on another slide. The volunteers have 2 possibilities to reach the system. They can use also a web browser or a mobile app. After they get all information about the help request, they can provide assistance. For example, they can buy the asked products and they can deliver it to the home of the disabled person. Or if a disabled person wants help to do the shopping, they can make the guidance in the shopping hall. This is a screenshot from the system, which can be used by the operator. A map is displayed with the locations of the currently available volunteers. The operator can add new users, such as people in need or helper, to the system, and the operator can also add the new requests through this web page. He or she can find a volunteer or a guide for each task, and the status of each task can be monitored as well. And there is also a calendar view. The working hours of helpers and the time of task can be displayed. This slide shows how the operator can find a volunteer for a help request. The system can list all the helpers. If the date, time, and place of a new task is known, the list of helpers can be reduced by selecting the available volunteers who are able to perform the requested task. The operator can choose between two different possibilities. The operator can select one single volunteer from the sorted list, or the operator can broadcast the help request. This means that all the volunteers who can provide help at the asked time and place will get message through the mobile app, and the first volunteer who accepts this task will be assigned to the request, and the task will disappear from the app of all other helpers. I show you some screenshots from the mobile app. After the login, the list of tasks can be seen. The new requests are highlighted by a yellow flag. The user can see the details of a task by selecting one from the list. If it is a new task, he or she can decide to accept or to reject it. If a volunteer wants to use public transport to execute the task, the route details can also be displayed in the app. There are some other possibilities also. For example, a volunteer can report unplanned absence through the app. Until now, unfortunately, only an Android version is ready, but we plan to implement the app for iOS as well. The volunteers have also an online surface to manage their calendar. They can set which time slots are good for them, and they can see when they have something to do. We tested the system in a pilot project. Újbuda is the 11th district of Budapest, or university is also located here in Újbuda. We cooperated with the social service of Újbuda. They provided operators and vulnerable people for this pilot project. We asked also some students from a Catholic community to test the system as volunteers. We supported both the operators and the volunteers by trainings, and we tried to answer all their questions, and we also collected their feedbacks. During the pilot phase, we have seen that elderly people are often afraid of new solutions, and most of the operators from the social service were elderly people. We needed quite a lot of time to teach and motivate them to use the system. Our task was, with the younger volunteers, much more easier. They used and they are still using this mobile app with pleasure. They found it useful. Moreover, they gave us some ideas how to extend the functionality of this system further. There is a huge problem which was not mentioned until now. This is the question of responsibility. The service should be used only by people who are really in need and by volunteers who are really reliable. We solved this problem by adding to the system only such users who were suggested by reliable partners such as a social service or a Medicare service. The pilot has shown that the system is a useful platform. but it can be further improved. We are working on the new version based on the feedback of the citizen. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me or my colleagues.
Thank you, Emese. This was a great insights into the COFCAP project. So so you see, project was really successful also because of of all those volunteers. How can this system actually be used? I think these volunteers will still willing to, to work on that big notice.
I hope it will be used after the pandemic. The basic of this system is the Mobisar, which was used for years before the pandemic, only for providing guidance for vulnerable people if they want to use the public transport. So this system works for that reason, and it will work, and also here in Budapest as well. And for other problems, we can use it as well. Maybe the number of requests will be less, but still we will have people in need and volunteers who can help them to guide them to the doctor or something like that.
Okay, so need, unfortunately. So I think this is a great solution, and to use this system in other cities as well. So Budapest, but also in other cities. And what
yes, and
they're interested.
In the current form, the public transport route planner of Budapest, which is called Budapest Futter, is in this system. We have to change it, or we are working on a new version where there's no routing, no route planner inside, only to give information to the volunteers where to go, when to go, and we will not give them how to go there, and it can be used. We operate it as a software as a service, which means that the organization don't have to buy the whole system environment, they don't need extra hardware architecture, they only pay a monthly rental fee, and we manage everything and we give access to the system.
Great. So for those interested, please get in touch with Emese for your interesting insights. Like to give the floor to our last speaker, last but not least, Jacquinet from the Île-de-France region. She's a project manager there in the transport direction, working on projects essentially with corporations. Academic background, Hélène studied at Sciences Po Paris, so she has really a cross-cutting point of view when it comes to mobility. Hélène, I'm very curious.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can start, Hélène.
Okay, sorry. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Bernadette, for this presentation. I work at Transport Mobility Department in Île-de-France region, and more specifically, I work on a project called Lissage des heures de pointe, which is the subject today. Basically, this is a project about mobility and commuting during peak hours. This is a project without any budget allocated. So it's a soft way to change behaviors by convincing and supporting actors who share the responsibility in terms of mobility. We all have experimented going to work during peak hours. It can be really difficult and exhausting. It's the case in the Île-de-France region and in Paris too. Before COVID crisis, 71% of daily traffic was during peak hours, and more specifically in the morning, because 90% of commuting between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. was for work and studies. So companies and universities are the target when it comes to reduce peak hours. And there are a lot of impacts resulting from this transport saturation. First of all, operating systems are struggling to satisfy the demand of mobility. A tiny breakdown, for example, may become a big one because of huge flows. And for users, it can be unpleasant and stressful to be in the middle of a saturated subway. So it has consequences on their work and the productivity of the company as well. Tell me.
Hélène, we cannot see your slides.
Ah. Okay. So let me just. Is it better?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So I was saying that with the global pandemic, we have seen that peak rush hours are very bad to respect social distancing in public transport. It's the case today, but it can be the case tomorrow too with other diseases, for example. And in addition, with transport, with saturation on roads, it can cause a lot of pollution in the city too. So we have a lot of negative impacts about peak rush hours. Concerning the project, what levels do we propose for reducing peak hours? We have two main categories, and they both concern companies. The first one is making working conditions more flexible. We recommend companies to telework and work from home once or twice a week minimum. Employees can work from a third place too, which can be closer to their home. And we recommend making working time flexible, meaning that employees can choose at what time they arrive to work, depending on peak hours, depending on their personal organization with kids, for example, and with other personal activities. So those 3 points may have an impact of transport demand. The second category is about promoting alternative mode of transport. We explain to companies that if their employees can't avoid peak hours, they should use other modes of transport, like cycle or carpool. The most important thing is to fight against the one car for one person model. And as a company, incentives can be set up to promote those practices by offering cycle services, for example, creating a cycle community. And our strategy through this experimentation is based on travel demand management. So what we did is we brought together big companies from 3 dynamic employment areas. We can see them on the map on the screen. And we have convinced them to engage themselves to promote this experimentation and to reduce peak hours from 5 to 10% at their own level. So it's a big challenge for them. For this purpose, we wrote a charter. Companies directors have signed engagement for at least 1 year. They commit to develop several levels like teleworking, flexible working time, carpool, cycle development. Meanwhile, the Île-de-France region, operators like RATP, SNCF, I don't know if you know them, and local territories bring support to them, to companies, with public information, good practices, and by organizing working groups. about mobility and working conditions. Companies make advantage of the network created. In fact, our contacts are mostly human resources who can share a lot of information and types with peers. And they also benefit from mediatic exposure from the signature event, where the president of Région comes to sign and other companies' directors too. The press is also invited, and the day after we can read a lot of articles about this event. You can see a photo of this kind of event on the screen. So since COVID crisis, we have to fight against the pandemic. Reducing peak rush hours has become a public health issue now. With full-time teleworking, companies are rethinking the way they organize their teams. And I think they are more and more interested in mobility and in environmental issues as it became essential for workers. So with our local partners, we organize like working groups to talk about those actual issues, like how to develop cycle practice, how to avoid rushing peak at lunch. It's a huge issue for companies nowadays. How to optimize commuting, etc., etc. So what we can observe since COVID crisis, obviously, is a revolution of teleworking and of cycle. For example, since COVID-19 crisis, 23% of people who have changed their transport mode have chosen the cycle. So it's a big change. And this revolution is also based on the new bikeways created during summer 2020 as a response to the COVID crisis, as Francesco mentioned it before. So interest is growing, and we created an online platform to give information about how each one can reduce commuting in peak hours, as if you are an employee, corporate, or a community. And then once charters have been signed, it's important to get some metrics about this project. So for the evaluation, we have different types of metrics. Operators share information about validation ticket first. We settled traffic level captors in different stations for monitoring flows, is the second point. And those data are completed by experimentations with mobile operators. We haven't big conclusions yet, as it's still an experimentation, but mobile data can help to complete existing data, to analyze and to understand commuting, and maybe one day to predict them. So it's really useful, but it's still an experimentation, so I haven't a big conclusion. And from the company side, we are deploying online service for employees. It brings information about how companies are changing face to the crisis and how are the expectations of employees for the future in terms of mobility and working conditions. Then we have other global information about human resources from each company, but it's still difficult to collect it. Thank you for listening. I put you 2 links about the experimentation if you want to know more about it. And I'm here to answer your question if you have.
Yes, thank you. Interesting to see it more so in a city in the region Île-de-France, but next to the city of Paris, to see that this is really going forward. So I saw on one of your slides actually that you asked companies to reduce peak of 5 to 10%.
Yes.
And how do you get to this percent?
Well, it came to 5-10% depending on the growth of La Défense, for example. It's the first place we where we implemented the experimentation. In Île-de-France, 15 companies have signed, so it represents about the half of employees of this area. So depending on this growth, we predicted the 5 and 10%. Those are the two factors from which we decide this amount of reduction.
Okay, so it depends on where the specific.
Yes. Yes, because if you reduce of 10%, but the growth of population and jobs is about 20, it doesn't make sense, or we don't see the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And a question here from the audience. So you interact directly with company representatives. Have you seen different attitudes before and?
Yes, before COVID, companies are interested, but it was a marketing, and it was good for them because for the mediatic exposure, you know. Nowadays, with the COVID crisis, they are realizing that mobility and environmental issues are important for them too, and important for workers, as it can improve the productivity of companies and the well-being of workers.
Okay, and
So,
how do you really incentivize? Sorry.
No, just let.
Okay.
Then
How do you really companies to get involved in this experiment?
Companies make advantage of more flexibility and mobility services. There are less employees are less tired and are less stressed, and they can manage more properly their private and professional lives. And companies have all a social and environmental responsibility. So this project gives them credibility. And the last one point is about mediatic exposure, as I mentioned before.
Okay, yeah, clearly that helps. So, well, thank you, Hélène, for yeah, yes, and I think the pandemic situation, like there, as well as of companies. So, thank you very much, Hélène. One more question, actually, and that I would like to ask you. So working overtime is part of a competitive office culture. Is that a problem or an opportunity for your goals?
It was a problem because in France, it's part of our culture. We have to be here at 8, 9, and we have to leave after the boss. For example, it's a mindset we are struggling to change. But with the crisis, I think we change our way of thinking, and with the teleworking too, we are less focused on that thing, and the companies are aware that even if the employee is not here, he can work from home and he can be effective as well.
Indeed. Very much, Hélène. Before the end of the session, so I would like to invite all our speakers. And we have seen a lot of interesting cases and things that have really crisis actually really accelerated this transition towards more urban, like more sustainable, and all types of target audiences like for getting a real like great place to cycle around. I think it would be great to go to Rome now and just, you know, use your bike to see all the cultural experiences. So I would just like to thank you, Hélène, and great to share experiences here. I also would like to thank, of course, Polis and specifically Victoire, and obviously the Urbanism Conference. A great platform. Let's do this next year again. And to all the audience here, I wish you a of conference and great afternoon.